Hi, everybody. My name is Jeremy. Hello from Lakeside, Montana, where I work with the Discipleship Training School Department and the Discipleship Schools team here in Montana. So, I want to share with you a little word that I've had for myself that I've been mulling over and trying to apply for the last few months. And I've shared this a couple of times just in passing with friends, and they seem to say to me all the same thing. This is really helpful. So what I'm going to share with you right now is not necessarily new for some of you. In fact, a lot of it's going to sound like, well, duh, but I want you to put it in the bigger picture because I really feel like this could help us in some of the season we have been walking through and where do we go from here. In fact, when I was talking with my international DTS Center colleagues here in the Americas about this, they started sharing some stuff that they are seeing different schools and programs and locations struggle with that we have too. And when I shared some of my approach to this, or what I've just been trying to wrestle with, they thought this is really helpful. I tried to get this out, oh boy, like a month or more ago, and I just couldn't get it to happen. My bad. And so maybe it's too late now. Maybe it's helpful for you. If it is, great, take it, right? And if it isn't, that's okay. Nothing lost, hopefully. So if you find it helpful, I really hope you do. So what I want to do, I want to draw out a few threads with different things, but I want to pull them together into some sort of a meaning for us that'll help us move forward with a bit of clarity, not just ourselves personally, but more importantly, who we are leading and maybe how we are being led as well, but who we are leading and how we getting through this this season. So the core idea is this, and I want you to be left with, is that my opinion, and this is how I've been leading for the last several months, is that we are not trying to go to a place of reopening our schools, programs, bases, DTSs, whatever. We are not reopening churches, ministries. We need to be looking that forward and that we are in a pioneering season. So you might be opening your schools again, but if I want you to move away from this idea of reopening and look more at the idea of we are pioneering. We're in a pioneering season. I'm going to unpack that a little bit. But there's some other things that I started getting a little bit of revelation for myself about that draw into this. And these are the threads. First of all, it's crisis management. I want to talk a little bit about crisis management, what that is, what it looks like, why do we do it, where does it lead, right? The pruning word to the mission early this year. That's very big. I want to look at the year so far. In fact, I think I'll start with that right now. But after that, I want us to come back to this idea that pioneering mindset actually impacts vision and our work, what we do practically as well. Okay, so let's go back to the year as a whole and just kind of recap some stuff for you, just to kind of throw it out there. And I started doing this for myself as well, so this is for me too, right? So January, February, right? Depending on where you are in the world and what you've been working with and how quick the lights turned on, January, February, COVID emerges as something more than just a blip. And then it starts to impact all of us, right? Way back then. In March and April, it hits big time. It forces changes, cancellations, imposing isolations, etc. Then the word to the mission comes out about pruning. And don't forget this, right? And don't forget this part either. Pruning, I can't go into all this stuff, but pruning happens to a plant, not in cooperation with the plant, right? That's a big deal. We like to think that, well, I'll see what God wants me to work on. That happens. But when we have a word about pruning, we need to realize that this is what happens to us, right? Not with our approval or agreement. It's how we see that and respond to it. That's the big difference there. Okay. So that's really what's happening there. May and June, pressures and stress reach an all-time high. Okay, really quickly, in other areas of society, right? We can't travel. Powder keg goes up. Racial tensions, violence, more. It's hard to respond well. There's division in every sector of society, racially. Churches are gathering. Should we gather? Should we not gather? What do we do? Opinions on COVID. Hello. Fear. comes in. We don't want to mask shame people. And then we don't want to say, you can't wear a mask. It's just this back and forward. Don't tell anyone what to do. There's anti-government and anti-institutional thinking. And then there's pro-government and how do we navigate that as well? Masks on or off? Do we gather or not? Schools open or close? What about YWAM? Then Lauren's word on zero. This was in June, late May, early June to us. Word of like, we're at zero, which is a really great pioneering word about stop thinking about what we have as normal, but we starting afresh. And it's a fresh season. Okay, he sees it. It's interesting to me. Of course, right? He's the ultimate pioneer, like this, visionary. In the summer, we're reeling from the above, financial crises at different bases. We're maintaining and we're trying to plan at the same time, spending cuts. Do we feed staff or not feed staff? How do we live at home or not, etc. And in all of that, how many of us can relate to the following? And these are things that I've been writing down and picking up. People are more tired than usual. There's more anxiety than usual. We're feeling ineffective in ministry more than usual. Some of this is just personal. What am I doing here? You know, is this place where I'm going to be? I had people coming to me saying, this is early in the year, saying, well, I think I'm just going to maybe go home and, you know, and do that. And I'm thinking, well, why would you go home? You can't, at that time, you can't work. You can't go out anywhere. And I thought you were called here to the mission for a certain amount of time. But things have changed, so, well, does my calling change? Now, in the middle of that is our ministry even effective, and etc. People feeling unworthy of support more than usual. They're questioning the current vocation more than usual. Handling personal issues with our staff, having to encourage them, motivate them, answering unanswerable questions. This is just through the summer. Now, in the fall, we're getting into it, the same as the above, but now with the efforts to reopen. People are tired and disappointed. People are constantly dealing with giving things back to God, letting things go, unmet expectations, etc. We have to hold things loosely. This whole idea of even our rights and what we have, we have all this, we have to give it to God. And I would just encourage us that it's good overall to have that mentality as disciples. But I want to swap that around to match the season we're in. Because if we don't see clearly, how do we plan our steps accordingly? One leader asked me, of another large department, asked me, can I meet with you? He's younger than me, obviously. And he said, how do I lead my department and my staff in times when they're constantly dealing with disappointment and unmet expectations? That's a great question. It's a big question. Why are we constantly dealing with unmet expectations? Obviously, we have them, but how do we lean forward? So coming back to this thing, I was just telling him, you've got to see yourself in a pioneering season, not a reopening season. Okay, new life, a new normal. Okay, so what does this other stuff like crisis management have to do with it? So I'm in a meeting and we're preparing for our fall school, which is running right now. Okay? And we're doing a lot of things to bring months ahead to bring the school in. Like we're collecting accurate contact details. We're telling them ahead of time what to expect when they're coming here. We're saying this isn't going to be, this is not the Love Boat, right? This is like the Northwestern, the deadliest catch. It's all hands on. We follow protocols, and it's going to be challenging and great. Talking about Thanksgiving and what's there and what's not there. It's been really good, right? Amazingly, no one backed off. Everyone leaned in. That's really important to know. And then I started realizing we were actually starting to set stuff up according to crisis management basic protocols before any school. Getting information in, setting things up, creating communication networks, testing our communication framework back home. Like, for example, updates to parents and to pastors during the school, so that if something does happen, we're on the same page, there's trust in the gap, etc. So I'd also been realizing I was leading according to classic crisis management protocols for months. Now, which obviously means we've been living and working through a crisis, right? Now, I'm looking at my time in the summer coming to the early fall, right? Now, you might be saying, well, duh, COVID, right? But think about it. before COVID, did we sit down and pull out our crisis management handbooks? Did we call back to the base and say, hey man, I got a big problem here. I need some help. We have an accident out here, or we have a student run away, or I'm melting down, or what do we do in this situation? Do we have a single situation, but knowing that the outreach would eventually come back into alignment with the school and we keep moving forward, right? You're going along, you have a blip, you have something in place to handle this kind of stuff for some sort of basic processes, and then we come back to the normal of what it was before. So we're living according to crisis management in the moment, but that also assumes we're coming back to a normal, okay? I don't think we had that luxury of coming back to the normal, but we were acting like in the sense that we were, okay? So the best response to any crisis is preparation ahead of time. So we prepare a foundational plan, basic broad strokes plan, to provide an initial response or approach. So we develop it well ahead of time, even before the school begins, to be able to walk it out, right? Now, of course, we recognize this centuries-old adage that no plan survives contact with the enemy. And crisis management is knowing all about, in crisis management, we can't possibly know every single scenario that's going to happen and prepare for them all. So we have a broad approach to it in case something does happen, okay, in order to get back to normal, right? This is an interesting quote I found by General Eisenhower just toward the end of the Second World War. He says, I find plans to be useless, but it's the process of planning that is invaluable. Okay, but being ready in case something does happen, listen to this, helps us not only respond with something, but actually helps us to recognize when it is happening. Okay, and many didn't recognize we were in crisis management scenario. It feels like crisis, but is it the classic scenario? I would suggest that many are still resisting that. Because we're trying so hard to keep doing things as normally as possible, or to return to that. Okay, if we did recognize the crisis management season, we've been approaching it with a mentality of moving it back to the security, okay? And that's how we normally operate. So that's a little bit of what I want to try to divert us from, and this is what I've been doing and trying to do it, and nothing's perfect, but it's providing a lot more life than if I just tried to get through it, hoping that we'll return to normal, okay? And I want to talk about culture shock for a second, because it's the same sort of thing. So if you're prepared a little bit for crisis management, then you kind of know when it's happening, or you kind of, it dawns on you that, yep, this is where we go, right? But if we're not actually able to go back to normal, what does this whole process mean? It means we're either going in circles, right? We're not moving forward, or we just stand still. So then we tend to maintain and survive. I know it has felt like that. We maintain where we are in order to survive, hoping for an opportunity to go back to normal, right? But with incorrect vision, we begin to perish, okay? So culture shock, for example, simply put, a feeling of insecurity and fear that follows when one feels out of control in a new environment. You can apply that to any place, right? Anytime. I've actually found the best way to address this in teams or with staff is just to basically say to them, wow, you know what? This is culture shock. It's culture shock. You're not losing your mind. You're not failing. This is a normal, what you're going through is normal. And when people recognize that, they're able to take a breath and say, okay, I'm not a loser. This is an external impact. I need to adjust, I need to adapt, but it's information, it's empowering. Okay. The current season, we've got crisis management and massive culture shock. Okay. We need to recognize we're in it. Okay. But we're not trying to go back to new normal. That's the difference. Okay. We want to emerge. What is the next thing he's bringing us to? And if we don't see that, we are having vision to go back to a new normal that isn't there anymore. So it cannot lead us there. Okay. Again, this is a philosophy I've been operating under. I wish I could say it's just a season or an event, but I think to say that, it means we can recognize the end of it. We just can't. And I think that's okay. I think it's okay because we're rediscovering as we go. And I think one thing about YWAM is that we are uniquely set with our corporate and cultural gift sets to deal with change, embrace vision and the new, right? And work together as community. So we're positioned to be able to do this. Okay, so let me move through this. And so what about pioneering? Okay, look at my timer here. What about pioneering? We have to see this season for what it is. And I'm telling you guys, I feel like we're in a season of pioneering. Why is this important? Now, to do this, I have to talk about the word of pruning. I told you I'll be doing these thread things, right? The word of pruning came to us so significant. When this came to us, I really started looking at stuff like, okay, what does it mean to be pruned like a lot of us did? If you're not familiar with that word, you can probably find it on your archives at YWAM Montana, beg your pardon, your own base or U of N websites or the YWAM.org website. Ask your leader for it from Tom Bloomer. And I started hearing people say, this is classic in the Western world. We're all so individual, we're independent, and everything's in it. God agree. I have to work. We work with God all the time, but we have to understand that sometimes God does things, and He's inviting us to work with Him. Okay, and so the pruning thing, instead of saying, "Lord, help me to see what You want me to do or give up in my life," we just okay, hang on a minute. If God is doing a pruning act in the mission, we have to look at what is He removing from the trunk here at the moment. So other stuff can come. It doesn't mean it's bad. It means that time is over. So for me, with some of my senior leadership, I started realizing, man, a big change that we made a couple of years ago, actually. We've been trying to bring that program back around because it's a good program. And one of them said to me, this was pruned. And I knew it was right. It doesn't mean we never go back to it. Right? What it means is that I need to stop trying to hold the branch with with fruit that was on there and say, okay, God, you pruned this, and I keep trying to replant it. I need to say, it's pruned. I put it aside. God might grow something like that back later on, but I'm holding on to something. Okay. And it feels like that with a lot of things that we're doing. Now, YWAM Montana, we're a large base, and we have a lot of responsibilities and a lot of commitments and a lot of ways of doing things. Larger bases, you will feel this a lot more, which is very interesting because I've heard from people who are overseeing smaller bases, and they're telling me actually they're having a less time adjusting to new ideas, but larger bases are really having a struggle with how do we maintain or return to some sort of normalcy. Okay, so I need to say, that's gone, put that to the side. Thank you, Lord. That's all right. I trust you. Now, what you have for us as we move forward in a new season. So we're not going back to the way it was. We're approaching, I really feel like, a brand new world of missions, more opportunities and more creativity. And this is what a pioneering mindset does to us. It opens up, imagine yourself coming into a pioneering situation. So these are the areas I've seen the shift in the mission and where we are in Montana as well. The spheres are becoming more legit than ever. And I'm not just talking about in YWAM. I'm talking about outside of YWAM in the church in general. And this is something God is doing across the board. It's a new season, okay? America, other Western countries are really seeing this as, well, what are we doing in our own countries? They are worried about the developed nations, and we are becoming a missions destination, not just, we just go out, okay? Spheres are taking off. So it's requiring a shift sometimes in some of our thinking. Fundraising for missions. Everyone thought COVID was going to kill us, and it has been hard at places. But what I'm actually seeing is that people are willing to actually give into this. If they see young people who are willing to lay their lives down and to make a commitment in a time of uncertainty to something bigger than themselves, that is very attractive, especially in a time of unknowns. We've actually taken on more new staff in the last nine months than we have in the last couple of years. And they're getting supported. They're getting their support. Missions is it's what's the word? It's like winnowing out our expectation, our calling, and our passion for it. Nothing will bring in a heightened sense of mortality than a pandemic. And I think this is important. It's important. There's been a huge focus on our mission lately and our DNA, our values and DNA. This has been across the board. Our mission has not changed. Our mandate has not changed. Our methods will probably change, but our mandate has not. So we can't become too reliant upon our established protocols and methods up to this point. Now, we're not going to get rid of DTS, of course. That's part of our DNA. But other areas of how we do things at our bases, or the ministries we're involved in, or in other words, we have to have this attitude of like, whatever it takes. How do we know God and make him known in this environment, not just waiting for it to return to something else, right? Openness to creativity. I've seen this a lot. When you start to back off of these things and saying, we're in a pioneering situation, what can we do to do these things? Creativity pops up, okay? And that's been really good. Now, here's the thing. I am not a pioneer. Apostolic and pioneering is not my leading gift set. I have visionary element to me, but I'm more the prophetic, strategic, leadership stuff. But the apostolic prophetic, that is not my greater gift. So the impact it's having on me has been like what I've said. Mandates the same, methods have to change. We're not reopening, because reopening means we're doing things the same way we used to do them. But we can't, right? So let's stop trying to go back to that. We must not try to reopen schools. Rather, open ministries and training that enables us to accomplish our mandates and our calling, because that has not changed. More creativity. Creativity will allow new thinkers, new leaders, and new vision to rise. This is something else that in this season, I felt like we were really having a hard time with vision, because we weren't sure where we were going, what was happening. So we have to shift our thinking to, I've just arrived at a place. What can we do to impact? Creativity. It allows more people to be involved in more ways. It's motivational. Pioneering is like this as well. It sees every small gain as a major victory, right? It's a treasure. Every step forward is like a mile moving forward. Gratitude, with this mentality, gratitude will grow. And where gratitude is, it builds faith. It's very important, okay? Now, while there may be some very real losses, we don't want to stay in a season of disappointment. That is just toxic, okay? We see it as a season of opportunities, work, and growth. Now, I know that I sound like the classic apostle, like that, a pioneer saying, oh, it's all great. It's all roses, and I see this and I see that. I'm not saying ignore the loss or the disappointment, because in crisis management, listening helps to show respect, okay? And empathy, understanding where people are at, it absorbs tension, and we need to be doing that, right? That's a big deal. It's important. But if you stay in the season of disappointment and always feel like, well, I have to give this up to God now, have to let this, you're going to have constantly dealing with unmet expectations, which is what this other young leader was describing to me, right? Conversely, see it as like this. Don't think like a victim or giving things up. We see ourselves as victors. We've made it this far. We're still doing what we're doing. Our mandate has not changed. The kingdom of God is not is going to enter some civil war. It's not at stake. The kingdom of God will endure forever. Right? So we're aligning with what he wants to do in our locations and nations at the same time. We discern between needs and wants. What do we need? We need a whiteboard. And I did this with my own stuff here, right? Okay, guys, we're going to run a school. What do we need? Well, we need students. We have them. Are you kidding me? We're pioneering a school and we already have students. We need staff. We have staff. This is awesome. You know, we need a whiteboard. We got a whiteboard. We need a TV. We've got a TV. Now that may seem kind of like kindergarten to everyone, but think about it. Instead of saying, man, it would really be good if we could have this many students, and if we had this much, if we could all live together, and if we didn't have to wear masks, instead of thinking, what do we need to actually move forward with the mandate that God has given us? We have them. We have it here. Okay. It's great. We aren't hindered in pioneering by trying to repeat the past accomplishments. We springboard from them. We springboard from them into the future. So we have to recognize where we're at now in order to see where we are called to go. Okay? If we don't understand the season we're in, how can we adjust our expectations? Your expectation will always be what you experienced last. And pretty soon the expectation is going to be just one of more disappointment. That is toxic, and that will erode your faith. Okay? I'm not saying walk in denial. What I'm saying is look ahead, understand that, and walk with your people in that, but give ourselves something to look forward to, and that's going to require some creative thinking. Okay. If we don't understand the season in, how can we adjust our expectations? How can we plan more effectively? We will never be satisfied with any gains, but we'll always be looking at what we have lost and we can't return to. Okay. Here's a word that we use a lot, and I think it's getting dangerous, is transition. And I've heard it a lot in this time and times leading up to this. We're in a period of transition. Now, here's the danger. It's a cool word, and it's a sophisticated word, and it's a sexy sounding word. We use it spiritually like that. We're in transition. Transition just means change. But here's the problem. If you don't know what you are transitioning to or changing into, it's not transition. We're just waiting for something. Now, there are times of waiting, but if we're going to use that word, if you're going to talk about the season we're in as a season of transition, yes, we are transitioning, but only if you can finish the sentence, into what or toward what. Okay. We don't want to use that word as a panacea to help alleviate pain or discomfort associated with unplanned change. Okay. Because if we don't, what happens, if we don't really give a direction to it, we end up going from using the word transition, change happens, we go into maintaining, and then soon we go into surviving. And that can be dangerous. Okay. Morale will drop, vision can recede. Okay. All right. So what do? Recognize the times and seasons, beginning with January. Go back. What has been the trajectory up till now, right? Take note of the words from the Lord and to us as a mission. What's going on in the world? And what is the Lord saying to us? Go back to the things about the calling and the vocation, the calling of vocation to us, not just doing something different for a little while, but actually this is what I'm called to. And also as ministries, what has He given us to do? Remember that what we've been praying for, this is something here in Montana, we've been praying for new vision and some change and some other stuff. Be praying for it. What have you been praying for? New vision, a generation of disciples with a whole heart after God. Well, we got it. Okay, so recognize that. That's good. Don't try to reopen what we have been forced to stop and has been pruned. Create what is best to meet the new and emerging challenges in this generation. And take heart. Take heart. Be aware of the crisis we're in, but that enables us to keep our cool. Okay, so one of the things in crisis management is, as a leader, you don't have the right, or you don't have the option to fall apart. Right? You'll have your time for processing later on, but in the moment, we move slowly. Keep your cool, assess, evaluate. Okay, work your way through over some walls and build a bridge to the next safe place or the next transitional moment. But where are you going? So we're not going back to normal. We're going back to the next thing, right? Take heart. Encourage your people by recognizing that this is real. It can be hard, but it's still possible. Okay. And transition, don't just survive. So I want to finish with two things here. How does it impact us? Or one more thing to add to the what do we need to do? Recognize the gains. When you're pioneering, a small victory is a massive treasure. Okay, recognize those. So where does it impact us as well? Okay, so I'm going to talk to two groups here and to two different types of locations. So take the meat, spit out the bones. To younger or staff and leaders. So I'm talking about if you're at a location, maybe you're the first ones there and you're pioneering there, whatever. But if you're younger, but especially if you're the second or generation at a location of staff and leaders, or maybe third or fourth generation, right? So second or later generation at a location. I'm thinking, because you got to be realizing, boy, I'm not just coming into an established location. I'm in a pioneering season at a location. So your location may be established. So you're not pioneering a whole location, but it's the ministry and the mindset. Okay. So don't look to the institution to supply all of your needs. Okay. You get good housing. Great. You need to steward that as if you just walked into an old abandoned hotel that God had miraculously provided, and it's yours to fix up, to steward, to take care of. You go and get the paint, you paint the walls. Okay, you go and change the carpet out. All right, we need a whiteboard for the classroom. Instead of saying, well, doesn't some administration department take care of that? Well, maybe you need to take care of that because there's a spending freeze on it. We don't have the money or whatever it may. So you see yourself as the institution is not providing my needs. I am pouring into this location and these programs because I am called as a volunteer here, right? Take responsibility for that with the idea of no remuneration in return. That's one of our foundational values. We value the volunteerism, okay? Adjust, excuse me, your expectations. You are not codependent people, okay? We're working together with people, but I'm not codependent, okay? We are pioneering a missions organization. As a elders or base leaders, if you've been around for a while, so first generation leaders in a location, you probably remember what it's like. Boy, when we were here, we had to cut the grass ourselves and we had to, we didn't have this and that, or, if I needed a new furnace in my place, I had to go out and buy it, or if I needed to get a new refrigerator, I had to go and get that, or whatever it may be, right? Well, I did this and this, and I ran the kitchen and the accounting. We remember that time. And what we can tend to do is assume that the younger generation or the second or third generation of staff understand that too, and they don't. So if you feel like people are saying like they're waiting for leadership and handouts and other people to take care of stuff, then I would say, first of all, honestly, and we did this at our campus, stop blaming them and start asking yourselves, did we forget teaching people what it means to be a part of a volunteer pioneering organization? Or we become quite organized so that people just automatically expect it. It's not their fault. They're volunteers. I need housing, right? But a pioneering mentality says whatever it takes together, right, to accomplish God's plan, okay? Teach them. Teach them. Say to them, man, maybe I didn't teach you this. Show them. Go back. Don't have to be the leaders necessarily, but go back and walk with them in that time. Don't stand on the fact that you're a leader for so long that you deserve this and they have to do that. And well, I was young, so you can do it. Teach them. Okay. Maybe you created a system that is keeping people dependent. This is important because we're in a pioneering season, right? What does it mean to give up rights, provisions, to work towards something that you don't personally have like an asset ownership in? Okay, we own it spiritually, but not asset-wise. Older leaders and elders, don't try to go back to the processes and systems that served you up until this point. Now, this is particularly important for large campuses, and there is nothing wrong with systems and structure. I love structure, it's good. I think structure is underrated in the mission. Structure, when it's done well, provides security. Okay, but should never dominate vision. Okay, so if someone comes with a new vision, we don't say, well, no, we don't do it that way. We need to say, Lord, are you asking us to, or are you asking us to keep doing what we're doing, right? So, but We need to go back to processes and systems that might not be working right now. Instead of trying to keep them going, right? Working on this engine, keep it tuned up, keep it going. Maybe it's just getting old. And maybe it's not the best system for this new environment, right? We're off the freeways now. Okay, no use driving a Corvette or a sedan. Maybe we need to shift to something a bit more rugged and easy to fix in the off-road. This is important to keep in mind. You might not be in, like I said before, in a location that is pioneering, but a seasoned ministry and spirit that needs to embrace it. Okay, so you've got to apply this where it works in yourself. So that's a bit from me. I know that some of that is going to be well, old news or not new news. I'm not trying to say to us, hey guys, there's a thing called COVID. It's not the same anymore. We all know that. And maybe you've already moved past this, but I just wanted to share with you guys, and I've been asked by other people to share this, throw this out there, because I'm hoping it might help. Why are so many people dealing with anxiety? Why are people emotionally unstable right now? Why do we have staff wanting to give up? Why are we afraid of support raising or getting new staff because they think, well, it's really difficult? What about depression? People leaving, going back to, well, what am I called? This is a part of this, and what I would say is, let's get out of this idea of trying to maintain, then survive, then go back to something that just doesn't exist. We are a pioneering, evangelistic, missionary organization. Yeah, and each of us have our role in that somewhere. But right now, God has been doing some pruning, and He's been opening our eyes to the season we're in and the next season we are going to. And start looking and leading like that. You'll find there's a lot more room for creativity, flexibility, grace. It's an anointing on us as a mission, vision, encouragement, and faith there. Don't ignore hardship. Talk about it. Talk about it. Of course, talk about it. As we are setting vision to move into something new in the future. All right, let's see the crisis management. Let's manage it, but we are not going back. We are moving forward in doing that one. And that's really all I have for you. I want to stop talking. So hopefully that helps. Send it to your people, pass around if it does. If not, it's all good. All right. I love you guys. I am so proud to be a part of this mission and working here with you guys. So I'll see you around the traps. See you later.